Hey guys, Willy here. Well, as you know, because this is my YouTube channel. But we've come to the end of 2019 for the Willy Show. All the podcasts are done. And this will be a quick, I'm not sure how long it'll be because I haven't started editing it, but 10, 15 minute highlight reel of everything. Firstly, I want to thank you all for really helping me get this show off the ground. We've had tens of thousands of views across all the different platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and also on YouTube. So that's you guys who have done that. So thank you so much. And also the support you've given to people that have come on the show, making them feel comfortable and everything. Thank you so much. And I can't wait for next year to jump back in. There's some really exciting ones coming up, some funny ones also that are in the mix. I know I've been a little bit slower in the last couple of months just with work picking up. But I really hope you've enjoyed this year with me on the podcast, and I really hope that you enjoy this highlight reel.
I'm Matt Williams.
Cheers, guys.
I partied my way through high school. I joined the army straight out of school as a rifleman. I deployed to Afghanistan for 8.5 months as a crew commander at 20 and turned 21 over there. I've travelled the world twice, jumped from planes, dove under the sea, drank from shoes in over 20 countries, and I regret nothing. Returning home, in a regular doctor's checkup, I was diagnosed with an incurable, inoperable brain tumour on my 22nd birthday. Since then, I've made it my mission to enjoy my life as much as I can and show that terminal illness doesn't mean your life can't be successful, meaningful, and fucking awesome, whilst putting in as much effort as I can to raising money for brain cancer research. 12 months of chemo done, 60,000 plus donated to research, and I'm fucking happier than ever. This is my story of refinding my health and redefining terminal illness and smiling through it all. Righto. Testing.
It's the Willy Show.
Starting in 5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
So, hello and welcome back to the Willy Show. This is episode 17. I was almost at 16 then, and I literally just said to the boys sitting with me that I'll make sure I won't forget that it's 17.
No, thank you for having me on, Willie.
Oh, that's
it's
fun.
a pleasure.
Towards the end of that trip, or when we got back, you've got 2 weeks, you're going to Darwin, because then you're going off to Afghan from there. So it was a back-to-back for us, and some would say we got kissed on the dick. So the second one that probably rang home for me was at the start. Especially we were there when Cameron Bird was killed in action.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I played footy with him when I was very young.
And taught myself into a role as a fundraising manager for a kids charity.
Yeah.
All these things were kind of building up to me being more aware of all the gaps in the market.
Yeah.
You know. So Audra said to us, because what, English police don't carry guns?
Yeah.
I went, no, never have. And she's like, well, what if the bad guys have guns? What's the way you can't really get guns in England?
Mm.
And just by having more guns, if the police had guns, then there'd be more guns available. So, I mean, guns don't solve a problem.
No.
You just get more guns.
No,
However,
you're in goddamn America.
No.
I think that actually speaks volumes for the page. I've had 3 guys on my show particularly that have been like, if literally been like, if SA Brothers wasn't there, I would have done it.
Yeah.
Can
Would have
also
checked
testify to that.
Sorry.
I can also testify to that.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm now on the team, giving back to a page that gave me so much. All your phone's just going off, notification after notification, and they're all giving you support. You'll feel like a different person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without the members, it'd be
a little bit of danger or sort of something like that is important under some controlled conditions. You probably should wear a motorbike helmet if you're going to go dirt bike riding, but you've got to overcome that bit of fear to function properly. Heaps of skills in that little thing. I talk to people about some of that stuff all the time. Like an example of an action like that, that hand grenade, being able to do that has so much lessons in it that actually apply. Obviously throwing hand grenades around society is not useful, but there's so many lessons in that thing that actually apply to everyday life. Before we even got to Sydney for the actual games, Timor was going to kick off and lots of other things were going to change.
Yeah, or within 12 months after that, we're going to have planes flying into towers. That being in an elite unit like that, when you saw the planes hit the building, was it a bit of a fuck, lads, we're going to be involved in this?
Oh, no, not really. I was in Timor at the time, and I'd just finished. It was 2001. I'd just finished my 6-month deployment there, so end of my deployment to Timor coincided with their elections, their first elections. They finished doing all that stuff, I was actually packing my bags at our little base we had at Ballabo to come back to Australia. It was the end of my 6-month deployment, and someone came running in and said, "Oh, some mad shit going on in America. Come and check it out." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm pretty tired. I'm going to go to bed." Like, we didn't realise, I suppose, the gravity of the situation. I finished packing my bags and went to bed, and got up the next morning to head back to Dili and fly home. And obviously it was massive on the news, and then continued to change the course of my career and you know, everyone else's.
Yeah, fucking up.
And we were, you know, camping out of our cars, getting resups every couple of weeks. We'd get a Chinook would come in and dump us off some more fuel and food. It wasn't like heaps and heaps of gunfighting or anything that first trip, so we didn't need the ammo resups. We were just a lot more just long range reconnaissance, doing reporting, sending it back up through the coalition system so they could glean the intelligence out of it. And we were roaming the countryside, having a good time. For my second trip, so I'd had mates going, sort of 2005, 2006. I knew that the fighting was going to be a lot more present, I suppose, on that on my second trip. And that's what happened. There was a lot more fighting. On a daily occurrence sometimes, and sometimes it was close up and sometimes it was long distance. But there was a lot more enemy. There was a lot more ever present.
That's Afghanistan, isn't it? And is there anything from that you want to share? Like I'm not to Drew. I know, just because some of the stories are bloody incredible, or at least maybe not the events, but maybe the impact that events have had on you. That your change, have you changed as a person from, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
When we talk about you getting into the army, and then that growth
wanted us to go where we needed to go, and then driving over the IED. It's actually when people talk about time slowing down, you know, maybe in a car crash or some sort of life-threatening situation, that's one of the things I remember massively of that split second. We'd driven down a hill on a road, and we'd sort of parked at an area where we'd sort of been designated to stop. And then shortly after that, we saw a guy looking really suspect. And
your definition of who you are has changed and sculpted.
I don't recognise. There's two different people. The guy who joined up and did all the tours and all that sort of stuff to the guy I am now, they're two very different kettle of fish. I spent many years, some people would call it, I don't know, soul searching. Dude, honestly, I was just looking for me. Like, we have just dealt with a 400% spike in IED warfare. And then, we had this job. I was on Overwatch position, and we got to this top of this hill. Now imagine it's about 2 a.m. It's about -10. Your water bottles like snap frozen in your pocket, and you're standing on top of this hill, and stretched out before you see on top of this hill is this huge trench system, just black trench just running across this hill. Everything, as you look around you, everything's shades of green and black through the lenses of your night vision. And then your orders comes flying through to your head, and you're like, you remember in the orders group, they're like, Nathan, there are IEDs in this trench. So obviously, there are known IEDs in this trench. But then what followed that was an intelligence brief that I got, which was saying that in the province that we're at, we weren't in Aruzgan or another place. They know our TTPs, they know our procedures, they know how that they know that we use metal detectors to find their bombs buried in the ground. So here you are looking for IEDs with a metal detector for IEDs that have no metal in them. So here you are climbing into a trench with a metal detector that you know is useless. It was the longest night of my life. Climbing in, swinging a metal detector, and you're getting hits in there. And you can't work out why. And you're pulling out a lot of brass casings and all that. And you're like, it turned out there was the exact same location where one of my mates was killed from SOA just 6 months earlier, or 4 months earlier.
Same trench system.
Same trench system.
Okay, no.
He was shot in the neck. He passed. And so you got all this just flooding through your mind, and you're dealing with all these brass casings, and you're going through, and the ground had actually snapped frozen nearly an inch thick. So with my little gaff hook, that little Bunnings special tool of choice that I said I use, I had to like bash through and crack the surface of the dirt to see what was underneath it. And so I'm about 2 hours into my search right now. I'm laying on my stomach, and I bashed through, and this big chunk of dirt just broke free. And I'm like, yes, capitalize this big chunk of dirt that I can, because there's a lot of ground that I can see underneath it. And in the backwards motion of pulling that chunk of dirt out, suddenly a package the size of a tissue box came flying out of the trench system about 1 meter in front of me.
Out of the wall?
Out of the wall, about 1 meter in front of me, and landed directly in front of my face. Yeah, instantly I knew what had happened. And I had just committed the biggest sin in dealing with these IEDs and disturbed it. I quickly realized that it was the battery pack staring in front of me. Man, I just froze. No training can prepare you for a moment like that. Like when you know that you've just ripped an IED out of its seating area, you know you just like, this is it. And probably about 30 seconds passed, got my bearings back. And then I saw this perfect loop of wire coming out of the battery pack and then running directly underneath me. I'd missed the pressure plate and it was somewhere underneath me. I had no idea where it was. I'd missed it. I literally, it was in that moment where I was like, this is it. Like, move and die. Like, your number's up. Like, Russian roulette gives you a 1 in 6 chance of dying. I had a 1 in 2 chance of living right now. And like, I was like, no. In this moment, I was like, this is it. But the thing is, it wasn't a split second. I was counting down the seconds of my life ending. But I knew I had to do something. I knew I had to move. There's nothing. I couldn't stay still. I couldn't just lay there for the rest of my days. I had to do something. And I came to a plan of attack after about 30 seconds. Felt like eternity. And I was like, well, if the pressure plate, the switch of this bomb is going to be anywhere. It's going to be centralized. And so what I did, I braced my elbows out as wide as I can in the pit. And then sort of dragged my hands out, trying to get right. I'm talking like the outer edges. Like, imagine on a vertical incline, trying to get your body out to, and then save my feet. And I managed to do this like funky push up onto my knees.
And did you think though at that point?
Driving and hear this call come over the intercom in our cars because it's so loud in there and all that. We all wear like headsets so we can hear what the commander's saying. And you hear this, search is up. And we're like, oh yeah, me and my mate will look at each other. It's our turn to get out. Armour comes on, metal detector comes out. and we're about to step out of the vehicle when you hear this, actually, don't worry about it. And it was a very unusual call by him. We've found quite a few by now. And we're like, we look at each other, we're like, oh, no drama, it's sweet. No.
What was that?
If you hesitate, you go anyway.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, don't worry about it. And we both sat down. We're like, okay, no worries. We take it off our seatbelts and all that sort of stuff. Vehicle started up, started driving. Boom. Back left tire hit 20 kilos of HME, homemade explosive, ammonium nitrate. Whole back left corner of the car exploded.
Jesus.
Man, I just remember just black dust. It's quite a chaotic sort of moment. I remember like cans of soft drink just exploding. Like I was covered in Coke, of all things.
Ricky Bobby, you're not on fire.
100%. I went on a 3-day mission because I was overburdened. I was 150 something kilos.
Backyard. About to knock on the door and my mate's yelled out, we fucking got runners. So I'm like, yeah, shit, we're on here. So gone through, like, burst through the house, out the back door. He's jumped over the back fence, and I wasn't sure who it was at that stage. So I've gone off after, looked around, couldn't see him, went underneath the carport of the house, and it was like a double sort of carport attached to the side of the house, and turned around, and there he fucking was, crouched down next to a dog kennel, and
in the fucking carport.
In the carport.
Pretty fucking close quarters shit at that point.
Yeah. And as it was, I'd sort of moved into the carport too far before I'd seen him, so I was sort of, he was between me and my exit, put it that way. So I was up against the roller door and the house in that sort of corner.
You'd Indiana Jones sit in the fucking door.
Pretty much.
And fucked it. I'm just proud that you put me right under Ferris Bueller.
One of my all-time favourite with athletes, which is where the book started, is that those athletes who enjoy the most success, and when I say that, I don't necessarily mean are the best in terms of the athletes, but those who've enjoyed their experience as an athlete, or they found the secrets to what helps them to perform, is that they are able to enjoy what they're doing.
Year 5.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I was an outsider the whole time. So that's when my school dropped off. So prior to that, I was pretty much a straight A student. I got ducks of, year 4 or 3 at school. I don't know why they
heavy
did
hitter
that,
over here.
yeah, I don't know why they did that, but year 3, 4 got that. Year 5 came along, moved to SA, and I just wanted to rebel. That teenage streak probably came in a little bit, so started just doing stupid shit. Started smoking weed when I was 13.
Jesus.
So had my first taste.
Fuck, mate. Snoop Dogg wears a shirt around with your fucking face on it.
Yeah, so we had Sapper Jamie Larkham and Corporal Richard Atkinson killed. Richard was my roommate on base.
Yeah.
He was in my building. We used to share DVDs and beers. DVDs was probably the highlight because he had a massive collection of DVDs.
Yeah.
Back when DVDs were actually a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, him and Jamie, they were both killed on my trip, and that hit a lot of the boys really hard.
Like breakdown, where I couldn't even get out of bed to go to work, and so basically I've seen a psych since then, and he's sort of like you need to do something.
When I was always moving and chasing the next escape from reality because I didn't like to be in my reality. I wasn't happy with myself and started finding out that I had a lot of mental problems like high anxiety and major paranoia as a kid. Something definitely tapped me on the shoulder when I woke up on the 2nd of April and said, hey, there's no more going to sleep at night saying you're not drinking in the morning and then being at the bottle shop at 9 a.m. I'm really going to pull my finger out and get down to a meet. They've definitely got to get there, meet some people in person and thank some people in person.
Yeah, so myself.
I think you're right, because if you look at any of the social media platforms, you'll see that the public were incredibly supportive and openly supportive of me during that media frenzy. and the medical fraternities and governing regulatory medical bodies were incredibly against me during that frenzy. So I'm hoping that most of the public realise that it was all just bullshit. It was all just tall poppy syndrome and jealous colleagues. His complication rate's going to be much higher than anyone else's. He'll look bad on paper. He will rank low on the website, and therefore people will choose not to do high risk cases. Some small technicality, after you finish your registrarship, you're meant to spend 1 year in an accredited Australian hospital. And instead of doing that, I went to America. So they say that I can't be a member of their society. And people for not thinking about that, because we all focus on life and hope and, we don't think about death. We don't think of ourselves as having a use by date.
No.
So, I can understand why people actually just don't make the most of their lives or don't appreciate what they've got because you're not reminded about it.
On the sort of cutting edge of the research, where that money's going, what are they doing and looking into for brain cancer treatments and cures? And
okay, so I have to take you back 2 or 3 steps to talk about that. And so the first thing I'm sure you know is that cancer has been killing people for many hundreds of years, but we really didn't start the fight on cancer until about 50, 100 years ago. And a lot of fast-growing cells need oxygen to survive. Because they're rapidly dividing, they've got high metabolic needs. And so if you produce a hypoxic environment, cut off the blood supply, the oxygen supply to these cancers, they don't like it.
Yeah.
Brain cancer loves it.
What a fucking prick.
Yes. It grows faster in a hypoxic environment because it metabolizes all those hypoxic elements, all those hypoxic metabolic products.
Yeah.
And so it loves hypoxia. Next thing. Oh, actually it loves oxygen as well. And it thrives even on oxygen and normal things because it builds its own blood supply. It produces a catalyst called, growth hormone called VEGF, which makes it bloody build this scaffolding before it gets there, where it's got plenty of blood supply, plenty of oxygen, plenty of nutrients from its own blood supply before it, so it never sort of outstrips its blood supply like a lot of other cancers. It's got inbuilt intelligence. So it's got the drug called MDR, multi-drug resistant gene, which means that if you give it a drug that should get there, then it recognizes and goes, oh, okay, we've got only a little bit of time here to develop a resistance to this agent, and it does. It communicates with itself. So there's very good studies showing, and you can actually see this on graphs, where if you present a toxin to one part of the cancer, it'll warn its colleagues on the other side of the tumor saying, we've got this chemotherapy coming in, it attacks, this and that, so get ready and start preparing some resistance to it. So it talks to itself, and it actually communicates and learns before the tumor even gets inundated by the toxin or the chemotherapy. Okay, it's got an outer shell of protection from all toxins because there's a thing called the blood-brain barrier, which is all part of everyone's normal brain. So the blood-brain barrier is a natural mechanism to stop toxins, such as chemotherapy, from getting into brain. It was built to keep us alive.
Yeah.
Well, the blood-brain barrier stops any chemotherapy from getting to the tumours. So even if you did develop, as you know, there's probably 400 types of chemotherapeutic agents in the world today, but only one is used in brain cancer because it's the only one that penetrates the blood-brain barrier.
So, obviously looking at sleep.
Yeah.
But over the past 10 years, we've sent them questionnaires asking about their health. Any cardiac problems, metabolic problems, cancers, mental health problems. And so what we'd like to do is look to see whether we can pinpoint whether there's something in sleep that'll help us identify those potentially at risk of a certain type of illness. Or
the point that I kind of convey there is you need to set those goals and move towards them, but whether you actually get to that end point, ideally you do, because that's what you started on the trajectory for. But it may be that you don't quite end up there, or you end up going down a different pathway, or things don't play out as you plan, or you give it your best shot and you just couldn't get there. But I suppose my
overwhelming ethos is to not die wondering, to be honest with you. And that was from a triathlon perspective, whilst I did not achieve anywhere near the level that I had aspired, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, is that personality profile that we associate with entrepreneurship is almost exactly the same as the personality profile of a special operations soldier, and that's that comfortable with risk, works well in small teams with no guarantee of success, and all of this sort of stuff. And there was a couple of situations that happened on that rotation that made me realise this, and there was two specific jobs where I'd been on them, and the task group had been allocated 2 different missions on the same day. One was there was a mission against what they deemed to be a strategic communications tower over near the Pakistani border, and the intelligence suggested that it was going to be heavily guarded, and it was a night mission. It was a winter job, and so anyway, long story short, there was that job. There was another job which was a more routine vehicle-mounted patrol. I put myself on the high-risk thing, thinking that we were expecting casualties. Turns out we got in and out, and there was not a single shot fired. And the other job had a massive incident with one of their vehicles and a bloke critically injured. And the medic that responded to that did a brilliant job. Saved this guy's life, stabilised him, aeromedically evacuated him, got him back, and did it as well as, if not better than I could have. That was job one. The other one was a job where I had been on once again a separate mission. I'd gone, done a thing, come back. We had another element out that was going against a Taliban heroin processing facility, and that had been rigged to blow. It was full of IEDs. The Talibs knew that we were going to come in and raid this thing eventually, so they'd rigged it, armed it as they went out the door. Our crew rolled in that night, got in there, started to sort of set the place to destroy all their stuff, and then someone initiated an IED, absolutely shredded one of our blokes, dropped him. The remaining crew fell back as they did, and then searched their way back in to make sure they were clear they weren't going to hit another device. By the time they got there, the guy that had been hit was showing no signs of life. One of my other medics was on the ground, and he responded, did his sequence perfectly, identified this guy had a thing called a tension pneumothorax, build up of pressure in his chest, and needled that, did another series of interventions, gave him an injection of a thing called tranexamic acid, which was the first time this stuff had been used in the field. It was just after we got approval to use it. And that stuff, in essence, reduces internal bleeding, is sort of the gist of what it does. But did these interventions perfectly, unquestionably saved this guy's life. And it was after those 2 events in pretty quick succession that it occurred to me, hang on a sec, I don't need to be on the ground. And not only that, as I said before, I am underselling these blokes that are working, that are working under my command. And anyway, there was a little bit of a lull at sort of 2, 3, 4 a.m. and then first light, it was go time. The whole village erupted on that first day, and spent that entire day just in a massive gunfight. Had a couple of Predator drones overhead all day, and Apache gunships, lots of gun runs, and lots of probing attacks, Apache escorts. Yeah. And so it was pretty dodgy getting those birds in. And
I was going to say,
to their credit, the AME crews, I never had an experience where they didn't come into a compound and then regrouped and realised that the 4th bloke wasn't with them, had gone out under heavy fire and recovered him and dragged him back. And the bloke who actually went out and grabbed him ended up with a Medal of Gallantry for that, because he exposed himself to heavy gunfire to recover his wounded mate. Dragged him back. We had realised that something had gone wrong, and the radio calls came through that they had a significant casualty or casualties. So I plugged into a quick reaction force about half a bit.
So rather than put it off
like they wanted to, 3 or 4 weeks. He said no. He said, you will get him in and doing chemotherapy right now. He said 2 weeks. He said, book him in.
Fucking, what did you think of that?
From working, I'd only been in my job 4.5, 5. Your situation, I remember saying to you at one point, if you need to break down, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just prior to a Christmas some time back, and it was a young girl in a school uniform.
Yeah, yeah.
And because of the time of year, there was a delay on the ambos because they're just busy. Like, it's a busy time of year, you know. Like, and so I was holding her, you know, for quite a while, and I held her while she took her last breaths when the ambos got there and all that sort of stuff. So that was hard, you know, like very hard.